This story, it doesn't really begin in a courtroom. It doesn't even begin with my family turning their backs on me. No, the truth is, it started 10 years ago on a night that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. I was 24 back then, a paramedic who thought he had the roadmap all laid out. The job was tough, long shifts, chaos every day, but I loved it. I had a girlfriend, Megan, who kept nudging me about marriage, about the future, and I figured, sure, we'd get there. My plan was simple: work hard, save, maybe get a starter home before I hit 30. Everything was on track. At least I thought it was. Then came that Tuesday night. The night everything unraveled. I just stumbled home from a brutal 12-hour shift, still in my work pants, dead on my feet. All I wanted was takeout, a shower, and sleep. Maybe a quick call to Megan if I didn't pass out first. But the doorbell rang. Once. Then again, harder this time, insistent, like whoever was out there wasn't leaving. Dragging myself up, annoyed, I opened the door. And what I saw waiting on the mat nearly ripped the tired right out of me. A car seat, soaked from the rain. A thin blanket clinging to it. At first, I thought someone had dumped junk at my door. But then, the blanket moved. My stomach dropped. I pulled it back and there he was. A baby. Tiny. 3 months old, maybe. His cheeks red from the cold. His little eyes shut tight, like the whole world was already too much for him. And then I saw the note. The handwriting punched me in the gut. Gabriella's. My sister's. The words were quick, desperate. His name is Alex. I can't do this. Take care of him. I'm sorry. That was it. No explanation. No number to call. Nothing. I stood there in the doorway, rain dripping down my hair, clutching that piece of paper while the universe stared back at me in silence. The medic in me reacted first, checked his breathing, his warmth. He was fine, safe, just sleeping. But then the big brother in me kicked in, and I was furious. Gabriella had always run from her problems, but this, dropping her baby on my doorstep, like I was some kind of on-call babysitter, that was a whole different level. I called her again and again, straight to voicemail. Then I called my parents, praying for some kind of backup. Some kind of will be right there. But all I got was my dad's flat voice. He's your burden now. And my mom, cold as stone. We told her not to have that baby. Don't drag us into this. Then they hung up. I just stood there in my living room, staring at my phone, wondering if I'd lost my mind. This was their grandson, flesh and blood, and they were already done with him. I looked back at Alex, still asleep, still unaware of the storm his life had already started in, and something inside me shifted. Panic, yes, I didn't know the first damn thing about raising a baby. But stubbornness too. If Gabriella and my parents were going to walk away, fine. But I wasn't. So I called Megan, thinking maybe she'd help me sort it out. Instead, she exploded. A baby? She told me to call social services. Said this wasn't my responsibility. That it was just more drama for my family. And when I pushed back, when I said I couldn't just hand him over to strangers in the middle of the night, she hung up too. And that was it. Me. Alone. No plan. No clue what kind of formula a 3-month-old even drank. I strapped Alex into the car seat and drove to a 24-hour supermarket, still in my uniform, wandering the baby aisle like some lost soldier in enemy territory. My phone in one hand, frantically Googling best formula for 3-month-old and diaper size chart. People stared, and just when I thought I'd collapse, a sweet old lady working the night shift came over. Probably thought I was some clueless new dad. She walked me through the basics: formula, bottles, diapers, wipes, even slipped me coupons. That night felt endless. But by morning, Alex was alive, federal dry, looking at me with these wide, dark eyes like he was testing me. And that was it. Game over. I wasn't calling social services. I wasn't dropping him at a hospital. I wasn't going to let him be failed by one more person. So, sitting there on my couch, holding him close, I said it out loud, quiet but firm, "All right, kid. Looks like it's me and you now. Don't worry, I got you." And I said it like I believed it. Even though the truth was, I had no idea what I was doing. Weeks passed, and the silence from Gabriella never broke. No calls, no notes, no explanation. And my parents? They didn't check in either. That's when it finally hit me. This wasn't temporary. Nobody was swooping in to take over. This was on me now. The next problem was work. Being a paramedic doesn't exactly come with built-in babysitting. I called my supervisor, explained the mess I was in. Luckily, he knew me, knew I didn't call out unless it was life or death. He gave me emergency family leave, but even I knew that was just a Band-Aid. Megan came by once, probably hoping she'd misunderstood the whole thing. She stood in my living room, arms crossed, watching me fumble with bottles and diapers like I was auditioning for the role of worst dad alive. "You can't keep him, Randy," she said flatly. "This is ridiculous. Call the system. They'll find someone." I looked down at Alex, fast asleep against my chest, his tiny fist curled into my shirt like he already knew the world was stacked against him. And I told her, he's not going anywhere. That was the last real conversation we ever had. By week 2, I knew my one bedroom wasn't cutting it anymore. Between the crying, the gear, the bottles everywhere, I needed more space. I found a small 2-bedroom closer to work. And that's when the legal side hit me like a freight train. I filed a police report about Gabriella, but the cops just shrugged. "Not a crime," they said. "She left him with family." A lawyer told me I needed guardianship, temporary custody, which meant fingerprints, background checks, home inspections, like I was applying for top-secret clearance just to prove I was worthy of raising the boy who had already been abandoned twice. Humiliating, yes, but I did it. The medic in me could handle the basics, temperatures, feeding, knowing when something was off. But nothing prepared me for the emotional minefield. Alex had colic, nights of endless crying, hours I couldn't soothe no matter what I tried. I'd pace the floor, whispering into the dark, "I don't know what I'm doing, kid, but I swear I'm trying." My parents were ghosts in all of this. They'd show up maybe once a month, if that. My mom would hold him stiffly, like he was some fragile museum artifact, then pass him back the second he fussed. My dad barely looked at him. Always the same question, "Any word from Gabriella?" And when I said no, he'd grunt and change the subject. Alex wasn't a grandson to him. He was a reminder of failure. But the real support came from places I didn't expect. My coworkers at the station threw me a baby shower, diapers, bottles, even a crib. My neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, started watching him for an hour here and there so I could grab groceries or just breathe. Piece by piece, I built a support system from strangers and friends, not family. By the end of the first month, things started to click. Feeding schedules made sense. I could change a diaper in under a minute. I found a formula that didn't wreck his stomach. And then he smiled. That first big, goofy baby grin. And I was hooked. Completely. That night, holding him close, I whispered the same thing I'd said the night Gabriella left him on my doorstep. "I got you, kid. No matter what, you're mine now." Only this time, I believed it. But believing it and living it were two different things. The years ahead weren't easy. 5 of them flew by fast, but they chewed me up. Being a paramedic already drains every ounce of you. Long hours, unpredictable shifts, everyone else's worst emergencies. Add in being a single dad, and the grind became my whole life. I got good at living tired. I'd finish a double shift and still sit at the kitchen table building block towers or coloring dinosaurs with Alex. Because even when I had nothing left, he deserved everything. I missed out on sleep, on nights out, on dating. But I didn't miss out on him. That was what mattered. Money was tight. Diapers, daycare, checkups, it all added up. I picked up overtime, shifts nobody else wanted, grinding myself down just to make rent and groceries. Some months there was nothing left over. But I kept us afloat. My parents? They stayed on the sidelines. They'd see Alex a couple times a year, but it was always hollow. My mom brought random toys he didn't care about. My dad barely spoke, bitterness dripping off him, aimed at Gabriella, but spilling onto Alex too. I stopped expecting anything from them. Gabriella stayed gone. No calls, no letters. For the first year, I kept half expecting her to knock on my door and demand him back. But by year 2, I stopped waiting. She was gone. Alex, though, he thrived. First steps, first words, first scraped knee from running too fast at the park. I kept track of it all. Not for Gabriella. For him. I saved every drawing, every note from daycare, every picture of him grinning with jelly on his cheeks. I wanted him to know, one day, that someone cared enough to remember everything. And then, one night when he was 3, I was tucking him into bed. He looked up at me, eyes heavy with sleep, and said, "Good night, Dad." It froze me. Until then, I'd just been Randy or Uncle Randy when the other kids asked. But that night, he said Dad like it had always been true. And honestly, he was right. I didn't correct him. I didn't hesitate. I kissed his forehead and whispered back, "Good night, buddy." From that night on, I was Dad. Period. By the time he started kindergarten, we were a well-oiled machine. Mornings were like a military drill. Me up before dawn, coffee brewing, lunch packed, breakfast on the table. He'd pick a dinosaur shirt or a superhero one, never plain. He'd sit on the counter while I tied his shoes because he swore it made him feel like a big kid. Then I'd drop him off, head to work, and do it all over again the next day. Work took a hit, of course. I even turned down a promotion to supervisor because it meant more overnights, more paperwork, less time with him. And the truth was, no title in the world mattered more than the one Alex had already given me, Dad. Hours on the job were hours I couldn't juggle. Some of the younger guys at the station thought I was crazy for stepping off the ladder, but I knew better. I couldn't be chasing promotions and be a full-time dad at the same time. So I made peace with the choice. We had our own little world, and we made it work. The funny thing is, Alex never knew anything different. He didn't sit around comparing his life to kids with both parents. To him, this was normal. Me showing up at every school event. Me flipping dinosaur-shaped pancakes on Sundays. Me building blanket forts on Friday nights like it was a sacred ritual. He'd brag to his friends, "My dad can drive an ambulance and fix anything." In his eyes, I was more than I ever believed I was. By the 5th year, we had a rhythm. Apartment walls covered in his crayon drawings and school photos. His little backpack always hanging by the door, ready to go. Friday movie nights. Saturday park trips. Sunday breakfasts. A whole life stitched together with traditions. And sometimes I just look at him and remember that rainy night when Gabriella dropped him in my arms and walked away. That helpless, screaming baby had somehow turned into this fearless little boy who could light up a whole room. And every time, I felt that same stubborn fire I'd had on day one, only stronger now. He was mine, my responsibility, my kid, my family, and nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to take him away from me. But I was wrong. Someone was about to try. It happened when Alex was 9. Just another Tuesday night. Nothing unusual. We were at the table, working on his solar system project, him gluing foam planets to cardboard, me making sure Jupiter didn't roll away, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I'd let it go, but something made me swipe. "Hello." There was a pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in almost a decade. "Randy, it's me. Gabriella." And just like that, the past walked back into the room. My parents sat there, beaming at Gabriella like she was some prodigal daughter finally come home. After dinner, my dad cleared his throat, and with the calmness of someone making a business deal, he said, "Randy, we've decided Alex should be with his real mother. Gabriella's stable now. Tony's got a good job. It's what's best for him." I looked around the table, me against all of them. The same parents who once called Alex my burden, now acting like they'd cared all along, rewriting history because Gabriella suddenly had her act together. I wanted to laugh in their faces. Babysit him as an infant? They wouldn't even hold him back then. And now they want to swoop in and play the heroes. Gabriella sat smug, soaking in the backup, while my mom actually reached across the table to pat her hand. "Blood is blood," she whispered, as if that excused 10 years of silence. "You've done enough, Randy. It's time to do what's right." That was it for me. I stood, grabbed Alex's coat, and called over my shoulder, "Blood doesn't erase 10 years of absence. It doesn't erase abandonment. He stays with me." End of discussion. In the car, Alex was quiet, staring out the window. Then, in this small, unsure voice, he asked, "Nana said I might go live with Aunt Gabriella. Is that true?" My chest tightened. "No, buddy. You're with me. Always." But he looked at me, eyes searching. "She said she's my real mom." I pulled over, turned to face him, and chose my words like they were the most important I'd ever speak. "She might have given birth to you, but being a mom or dad isn't about that. It's about showing up every single day. That's me. That's us. You're my son. Nothing changes that." He studied me for a moment. then whispered, "Cross your heart." I crossed my heart. Our little ritual, our seal on the promises that really mattered. That night, when I tucked him in, he was half asleep, mumbling, "I don't want to leave." And I promised again, silently in the doorway, over my dead body. Because the truth was, I'd been fighting for this kid since the night he arrived in a rain-soaked car seat. And I wasn't about to let Gabriella waltz back in after a decade and claim the title of mom. But promises made in the dark are one thing. What came next was war. 3 weeks later, the war arrived in a thick envelope from a law office. A petition, cold words on official paper, demanding my guardianship be dissolved and full custody handed to Gabriella. Not visits, not weekends, full custody. Every line cut like a knife. Best interests of the child. Reunification with biological parent. Termination of guardianship. And a twist the blade deeper? Both my parents had signed sworn statements backing her. My mom said I'd isolated Alex from his real family. My dad claimed I misrepresented Gabriella's abandonment, kept Alex from bonding with her. The people who once told me, "He's your burden now," were now painting me as the villain. I dropped the papers so hard on the counter that Alex came out asking if something was wrong. I forced a smile, told it was nothing. But inside, I was already mapping out my counterattack. The next day, I hired Julia Hernandez, a family law specialist with an office that felt more like a children's library than a courtroom prep zone. She didn't sugarcoat. After skimming the paperwork, she looked me dead in the eye. Biological parents have strong rights, but you've provided stability for years. We'll fight on best interests and continuity. Do you have records? Did I have records? I had a binder thick with them. Canceled visits, nasty emails, every doctor's appointment signed by me, every school report with my name. I'd save it all without knowing why. Now it was my arsenal. Julia nodded, almost smiling. This helps. But be ready. They'll dig into every part of your life. And they did. Gabriella's lawyer tore into my finances, my work schedule, even my dating history, painting me as some struggling single who could barely keep it together. Meanwhile, Gabriella and Tony showed off their 4-bedroom house, their yard, their dual incomes, their perfect little family package. It stung, because I knew Tony was just a placeholder, the guy who stepped in when she bailed. But I kept my cool, because if being a paramedic taught me anything, it was how to keep your head when everyone else is losing theirs. Alex, though, he felt it. The fear, the nightmares, the late-night cries that someone was going to take him away. I booked him with a child psychologist, someone who could put his fears into words for the court. The report came back sharp and clear. Alex saw me as safety, stability. Gabriella was uncertainty. Moving him would cause real trauma. That went straight into my evidence pile. But I wanted more. So I called the same private investigator I'd once used to track Gabriella. A month later, he handed me gold, Tony's past. A domestic violence charge. Dismissed, yes, but on record. And suddenly, the picture-perfect family they paraded in court didn't look so perfect anymore. The truth behind their so-called perfect life? It was a house of cards. The thriving business was barely breathing. The home they flaunted was drowning in mortgage debt. And beneath it all was the real kicker. Gabriella and Tony had been secretly digging into Alex's past. Not for love, not for closure, but for money. They'd traced his biological father, who had just come into millions. And suddenly, Alex wasn't just a child to them. He was a golden ticket. I had the proof. I sat on it for months like it was live dynamite, waiting for the right moment to strike. Meanwhile, my parents, out of nowhere, started playing wise counselors. Randy, they'd say, a boy needs his mother. Maybe this was the plan all along. You were just holding him until Gabriella was ready. I'll never forget the silence before I roasted them on the phone. The plan? The plan was me waking up every 2 hours with a bottle while you did nothing. The plan was me working doubles just to afford daycare while you played bingo. Don't rewrite history. You bailed. I didn't. Mom hung up. Fine by me. By the time court came around, I wasn't interested in keeping the peace anymore. My only mission was to win for Alex. I built my case piece by piece. School records, doctor visits, report cards signed by my hand, letters from teachers, the psychologist's words. And then, the PI's folder. The thing that could blow their perfect little story to ashes. The courthouse felt like a battlefield that morning. Marble walls designed to make you feel small, benches lined like trenches. But I walked in tall, suit pressed, evidence under my arm like a weapon. Alex wasn't there. His art teacher had whisked him away to spare him the circus. Smart move. Gabriella and Tony were already waiting. She in her floral dress, playing the role of a tender, reformed mother. He in a sharp suit, hair slicked back, wearing that smug expression like victory was already his. And behind them, my parents, sitting stiff like they were watching royalty. I didn't even glance their way. They weren't my concern anymore. The judge, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes behind her glasses, opened the case. Gabriella went first. She cried on cue, spoke of mistakes, of recovery, of a new life with stability and love. Tony followed with his provider speech, bragging about houses, school districts, his thriving business. He even had the audacity to thank me for holding down the fort until Gabriella was ready, like I'd just been a placeholder. When it was my turn, I didn't cry, didn't perform. I told the truth. 10 years ago, Gabriella didn't just make a mistake. She left Alex on my doorstep with a note that said, "I can't do this." I was 24, single, working brutal shifts. But I stepped up, not because it was easy, because it was right. I showed the records, the birthdays, the holidays, the letters that said I was the one showing up every time. And when their lawyer tried to paint me as stretched too thin, I dropped the line I'd been saving. Resources don't raise kids. People do. Money doesn't sit up at 2 a.m. with a sick child. Money doesn't clap at every school play. I did. For a decade. That's what being a parent is. The judge nodded. It landed. And then came the folder. My attorney slid it across the bench, and as the judge opened it, I watched Gabriella's face pale. The courtroom turned silent. Inside was everything. Proof they'd hunted down Alex's biological father. Proof they knew he was worth millions. Proof they planned to use Alex as leverage for support payments. Emails, records, even Tony's past, domestic violence charges, debt stacked to the ceiling. The judge looked over her glasses, her voice razor sharp. "Mrs. Ruiz, you say this is about love and stability. But this evidence tells a different story. One of money, manipulation, and lies." And for the first time all morning, Gabriella had nothing to say. She stammered, eyes flicking to Tony, then to my parents, then back to the bench. That's not true. This is twisted. We just wanted enough." The judge cut her off, voice like a blade. For the first time, Tony's mask cracked. He leaned back, jaw locked tight, the weight of the failed money grab sinking in. My parents looked pale, like gamblers watching the last of their chips slide across the table. Julia rose again, steady as ever. "Your Honor, this case isn't about square footage or bank accounts. It's about history. It's about who's been there. Alex doesn't need new parents. He already has one, and it's Randy." The judge gave a slow nod, her voice colder now. "I'll review all testimony and evidence, but let me be clear. This court does not look kindly on manipulation, especially when it comes at the expense of a child." The gavel struck. Adjourned. Gabriella wouldn't look at me. Tony stormed out, jaw clenched. My parents followed, eyes down. I sat for a moment, letting the adrenaline drain. Julia leaned over and whispered, "That folder just turned the whole case. They're finished." And I knew she was right. The mask was gone. The truth was out, and it was ugly. A week later, the courtroom was packed. Gabriella and Tony in polished suits, my parents stiff behind them. Me with nothing but that folder. The judge adjusted her glasses, voice steady as stone. "The court awards Randy Carter sole legal and physical custody. Petition denied." I didn't breathe until the last word. Then it hit me, we'd won. 10 years of weight lifted in a heartbeat. The judge wasn't finished. She turned to Gabriella. "Abandoning your child for nearly a decade, only to return when financial opportunity appears, shows a disregard this court cannot overlook." Gabriella's face collapsed. No tears, no act this time, just shock. Tony leaned back, stone-faced, already calculating his exit. Then the judge aimed at my parents. Your affidavit contains statements directly contradicted by evidence. This court is deeply concerned with your willingness to mislead. My mother's lips trembled. My father looked gutted. They'd gambled on Gabriella and lost. When the session ended, I packed my folder, nodded to Julia, and headed out. Tony hissed something at Gabriella, sharp, enough to make her flinch, before striding out alone. Gabriella followed, calling after him. He didn't turn back. My parents shuffled behind, but I didn't care. They weren't family anymore, because what mattered was waiting on the courthouse steps. Alex, holding his teacher's hand, eyes wide with hope. When he saw me, he ran, nearly knocking me over with a hug. Dad, did we win? I held him tighter than ever. Yeah, buddy, we won. You're staying right where you belong. He leaned back, grinning. Told you the judge would pick you. I laughed. Guess you're smarter than both of us. We walked down those steps hand in hand, past Gabriella, standing alone, past my parents staring at the ground. Alex didn't look their way. He just squeezed my hand and kept walking. That night, we ate pizza straight from the box, his dinosaur toy sitting beside him like it had been waiting for this moment, too. For the first time in months, there was no weight in the air, no fear of papers on the doorstep. Just us. And looking at him, the boy left with nothing but a note, the boy I carried through sleepless nights, scraped knees, science fairs, and now a courtroom war, I realized something. Family isn't blood. It's who stays. Gabriella ran. Tony bailed. My parents chose convenience. But me? I stayed. And I'll keep staying. Over my dead body, no one will ever take Alex away. It was the promise I made the night he showed up on my doorstep. And now, it's a promise I finally get to keep.